Hello everybody, welcome to the fabulous world headquarters of Midwest Imagery. I'm out here suffering for my art in the middle of a blizzard where we're predicted to get 7 to 14 inches of snow today and tonight. It's late afternoon now, but I wanted to get out and burn a few frames before I get back to you. So when I finish with my suffering, I'll put a little bit of suffering on you. So I'll see you in a little bit.
Hello everybody, I'm back. I said I was going to put a little suffering on you, and here it comes. Today, I thought I'd talk about metering for exposure. But talking about metering for exposure will put the best of us right to sleep. So instead, I'm going to show you a depth of field exercise that's going to incorporate metering for exposure and controlling the depth of field. And the depth of field is really important for isolating your subjects or creating depth in an image or focusing your viewer's eye on where you want them to look in your pictures. Depth of field is controlled by the aperture. The aperture is the opening in the lens that allows light to come through to reach your sensor. And when you change your aperture, you're changing your depth of field. It's just a balancing act, and we're just spinning a dial because we have a way of seeing instantly how our settings affect the exposure. And that's our camera's meter. And our camera's meter is found in at least one spot on your camera. You might have to look in your manual to see where's yours, but generally they are at the bottom of the viewfinder. As you put your camera up to your eye and look through your viewfinder, your information is shown across the bottom of your viewfinder screen.
So I just had to balance this out. Notice it's going down. Do you see that arrow went away? So I'm going to keep spinning my shutter speed dial till it gets right back under zero. Now I'm balanced, and this is the shot that I'm going to make. This is it's just that easy. All that information is right there for you. It's an instant readout to tell us where our shot is indicated that we can start with at that point.
First, you have to lightly depress your shutter release button, and that activates your metering system and your focusing system. So when we have the ability to instantly see if our exposure is correct, it takes all the guesswork out of our metering for exposure, because all we're doing is balancing three exposure controls. And if you remember from our eye-glazing, mind-numbing talk about the exposure triangle, we know that most often when we show up on a scene, we have an idea of where we want our ISO to be. And we have an idea of where we want our aperture to be. How much depth of field do we want in our pictures? Then, once we've set those two controls, we forget about them. We don't have to do anything else with them until our light changes or until you want to try something different. So that only leaves us with the shutter speed that we have to do our little balancing act and dial it in right to where the camera shows indicated. And our cameras are set from the factory at default to show us in 1/3 stops. But I don't think in third stops. No, not at all. So I think in full stops. And full stops will be easier for you to start to understand as well. Additionally, since we know our settings are in third stop increments, we know that we just need to click our command dial, which is also our shutter speed dial. We know that we just need to turn it 3 clicks to get to a full stop. And a stop is just a reference system that describes the point at which the light coming into your camera's sensor either gets doubled or halved. For example, if I start making pictures at f2.8 and I change my aperture to f4, which is the next progression, I've just cut in half the amount of light that's reaching my sensor. So that means I had to balance the exposure out by making my shutter speed twice as long as it was at f2.8 to have the same exposure. So for this exercise, what I like to do is set up 5 objects that will be going across at an angle from the axis of our lens. Curiously, over the years in all of my classes, when I've had students do this exercise, I see an awful lot of liquor bottles. I mean, whatever you have on hand, I guess. But anyway, when you go to set up your liquor bottles, I want you to focus right smack dab on that old granddad bottle, right in the middle. And then we're going to turn our autofocus off. And I'll show you where on my camera I turn that autofocus off, and I'm not sure where it will be on your camera. But we want to turn that off so our camera doesn't try to hunt for focus or keep trying to focus on there. We've got it set up and it's turned off. And then all we have to do is fire the camera. So now you've got your bottles set up, and your camera is either going to be on a very sturdy tripod or it's going to be on the same tabletop as your items are. And it's going to be, you know, straight, and it will be an angle like this. And you want it to be fairly stable. You might have to prop something under your lens to keep it from tipping down. Just prop something under it so it's on the same angle too. Then make certain that when you are releasing your shutter with your shutter release button, that you just tickle that shutter release button. We don't want to be stabbing that thing to wiggle the table and blur our shots or anything like that. Get into the habit of just massaging and just let it, just massage it, get a little pressure until suddenly it just, off it goes. We want to avoid any kind of camera shake with this exercise, and overall too. So practice lightly depressing your shutter release button. Then I'll tether my camera to my PC and show you the steps that I'm taking, and I'll show you the setup that I'm going to use, and then we'll go from there. I'm also going to point out that I'm going to be using a different camera, so there might be a little bit of, you know, movement in there too, but don't hold that against me, because I'm here showing you how to become a better photographer. And I like to keep things simple. I'm going to keep it simple here for you as well. Now, my camera might not be the same as your camera. I have no idea what kind of camera you're using. But if you're like the 99+% of the people who've gone through any of my classes, you'll have an entry-level camera with a kit lens on it. And that's just totally fine. You make beautiful pictures with any kind of camera that you have in your hand, except the kit lenses will have a variable aperture. So I'm going to have you, if you have a variable aperture lens, I'm going to have you start at f5.6, and that will allow you to zoom through your zoom range on any photography that you do without having your aperture change. You're not going to be doing any zooming beyond the initial setup to compose your masterpieces here, but just so that you know. And if you do have a kit lens, you're only going to be making 5 exposures, and I'm going to make 7. Now I might be forgetting something, but sometimes that's how it goes. And we're going to be together for a while, so I mean it'll come up if there's something critical that I forgot. But basically, we're setting up our bottles, and then we're going to focus on the center, and then we're turning off our autofocus, and then we're making 5 different exposures and balancing the exposure as well as controlling the depth of field. Okay, I'm going to set up now and get my tethering stuff set up and get my items set up, and I'll be right back. I've dialed in ISO 100. My aperture's at 2.8. All I have left to do is change my shutter speed so that these tick marks go away. Notice the tick marks are leaving us. Now we're right under 0, which means that we're indicated. So I'm going to make that shot. Now I'm going to change my aperture to 5.6. I'm sorry, f4. And then I have to balance my shutter speed with my shutter speed dial. Make the shot. And we go to 5.6. Go back the other way. Now, when I'm changing my aperture, I'm changing it to the left because that's making everything darker. And as I change my shutter speed, I'm clicking it to the right because that will make everything brighter. Now I'm changing my aperture again, 3 clicks to f11, 3 clicks to 2 seconds. Change my aperture to f16, 3 clicks to 4 seconds, lightly, until it startles you. Press the shutter release button. That's 4 seconds. So every time we change our aperture to the next smallest opening, the larger numbers, we're choking the light off that gets to our sensor through our lens's aperture. So we have to double the time that the shutter stays open. So in this case, our last exposure was 4 seconds at f16, and when I change this to f22, we're going to be at 8 seconds. And that's all there is to it. We're just spinning dials. We're letting our meter do its metering thing, and we're setting the exposure controls accordingly. This also shows us how we can control the depth of field. So that's now kind of a basic thumbnail sketch of metering for exposure. And are you sleeping yet? All of this stuff that I've been talking about, apertures, ISOs, shutter speeds, f-stops, overexposures, underexposures, we kind of have to wade through these very few eye-glazing, mind-numbing topics. All of these exposure controls work together reciprocally, and we can start from any direction. We can start with our shutter speed. Let's say we wanted a 250th of a second, and 5.6 aperture. Then we just use our dial to change our ISO until our meter shows us that we're indicated. It really is that simple. And right now you've learned how to meter for exposure, set the controls for the exposure, and control the depth of field. I mean, way to go. There's no stopping you now. It's you're telling the camera what you want it to do. I can't wait to see some of the images that you make. But anyway, that's going to do it for now. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.